Yesterday, as far as the story of the Orlando mass shooting, I made very clear that there is no one solution to the problem of these terrorist attacks using guns against minorities of different kinds, be they sexual or racial or religious or whatever, perpetrated too frequently by extremists from a variety of faiths in the United States, a plurality of the Christian faith, worldwide, a plurality from the Muslim faith. The solution isn't simple, right? It's not just gun control, but that's a part of it. It's not banning Muslims, as Donald Trump wants to do. It isn't U.S. foreign policy abroad that is the sole radicalizing factor. It's not just saying these are merely, as if that word even makes sense, merely mentally ill people. It is complex. And in the wake of this, there have been lots of discussions circulating about, the shooter in Orlando was a radical Muslim, and that's the only story that matters. Mental illness doesn't matter. Or others saying, Muslim or Christian or atheist or not, this guy is nuts. Only nutty people go out and mass shoot 100 others, killing about half of those. Religion is not an important factor. It's sort of an irrelevant side note. And on corporate media, you have this manichaeistic dichotomy, a false dichotomy. You either bring on the guests that will say, this is just religion, or you bring on the guests, the psychologists often, who say, this is mental instability. That's all that really matters. Can't we realize that it's both and likely other factors as well? I mean, obviously, you have to be somewhat nuts to go out and do a mass shooting, but there are lots of anti-gay Muslims who are, and I hate to use this term because it sounds so innocuous, and it's not, there are many Muslims who are casually anti-gay, and they don't want physical harm to come to gay people. And then you have anti-gay Muslims who, for the sake of following this line of thought, maybe they don't care if harm comes to gay people, but they would never go out and do it or even advocate for violence. And then you probably have some anti-gay Muslims who would never go out and do violence, but they would like violence to come to gay people or whatever. And then, yes, there are some who clearly have something else wrong with them as well, who are actually willing to go out and take that homophobia and put it into action, real world violence. This guy may have gone out with lots of other catalysts inspiring him and committed violence. It just so happens that there were anti-gay Muslim beliefs there. How can we possibly disaggregate the two completely? You really can't.
No, you can't. It just so happens that many mentally ill people gravitate towards religion, right? You have these documents. They say things that are harmful, could be misinterpreted, could be taken literally, should never be taken literally.
Yeah.
But at the same time, depending on how you're raised, I find it perfectly plausible that these devout religious teachings could lead to all sorts of neuroses and paranoia and you name it. And so, you can't separate them.
Now, in the same way, if Islam preached love and inclusion of the LGBT community and there was no anti-gay message from Islam, period, that one could find, including the group that this guy pledged loyalty to, right, ISIS, as well as Hezbollah and Al-Qaeda, then it wouldn't have been religion which inspired his real-world anti-gay violence, but maybe something else would have taken someone who already was prone to violence, as we heard from his ex-wife, to commit real-world acts of violence. That is also a possibility.
Right. And there's the foreign policy thing, right? This wouldn't be the only American who decides to revolt against the United States because of their foreign policy and what has happened in other countries, namely Iraq and Afghanistan. But why then would it be a gay nightclub that he attacks in response to that? You would think that a different target might might be better.
Well, some people emailed me after yesterday's show saying, David, you're wrong that religion is the only source of homophobia. Yeah, that's true. I mean, there are other ways that people come to homophobia, but I can assure you there's nothing natural about homophobia. It has to be taught. As I've mentioned many times, my little sister, who is now 12 and has grown up in a world where she has friends who have two moms or two dads, it's never mentioned that this is a controversial thing. She's fortunately still innocent to the degree that she doesn't know that for decades and decades and even longer, there has been hatred and targeting and discrimination against gay people. There's no way she would have naturally come to say, there's just something wrong with my friend having two mommies. That has to be taught in some way. And typically in the United States and in other parts of the world, the way people come to that is religion in some way, shape, or form. Not all, but overwhelmingly.
Yeah, and so you can't say with certitude that without religion, that type of sentiment would not exist.
Right.
But it certainly would be far, far, far less prevalent. And for some reason, people consider these religious documents legitimate, and they're really not.
Bottom line, the corporate media segments where you have a psychologist versus, some Christian pastor, one arguing that this is all mental illness, one arguing that this is all the Muslim faith. We're not going to get anywhere with that nonsense. And quite frankly, I don't even know that it's getting that great of ratings. But send me your thoughts. Is there something I am missing here? I'm on Twitter at @Pakman. I've talked about how people of all ages, but particularly millennials, are owning cars less and participating more in the sharing economy. And one of the more popular options is Zipcar, which gets you a car when you want it, when you need it. They offer all sorts of cars, SUVs, hybrids, whatever you need. It includes insurance and it includes gas. You just pay for the time that you actually use the car. And you can reserve the car online from your smartphone over the phone. Then you unlock it with your Zip card. Each car share member reduces their personal CO2 emissions by between 1,100 and 1,600 pounds per year. For our audience, Zipcar is offering $25 of free driving credit if you sign up at joinzipcar.com/David. Support our show, reduce your carbon emissions and your spending on cars. Sign up at joinzipcar.com/David.